I think just to reiterate some things from Saturday night and a couple things that kind of showed up. One, I thought this was a really good team win. We talk a lot about being a versatile football team and having the ability to win multiple ways, and I thought, quite frankly, we needed all our ways to win Saturday night. And so I think it started with, I thought our players showed great composure and poise in the environment, but also really good confidence. I thought they went into the game with the mentality and confident enough that they could go win that football game, and then they played like it regardless of some of the adversity that they were faced with. I really just looked at today a lot of the effort. We were meeting with the team, and just there were some really exceptional effort plays that showed up. Even some that sometimes go unnoticed. The ball came out a couple times offensively, which is an area where we need to improve. But just the effort that our guys made to recover those balls. I know a couple of them were ruled down, but JT, the fumble recovery on AD's fumble, the effort by Jonathan Brooks downfield on JT's that they end up ruling an incomplete pass, but there was such extreme effort. The effort on the punt that we down inside the 5 by Keaton Crawford, Keelan, and the rest of the coverage unit. Those were just some great examples. There's a couple. We showed a play today of Byron Murphy defeating a double team and making a really good tackle at the line of scrimmage. Just quality effort that I was really proud of the guys. So all in all, it came down to the fourth quarter. And falling behind, and then scoring 21 points in the fourth quarter, a variety of ways through the air, and then ultimately grinding it out with 7 minutes to go on the ground when we had to run it, and they knew we were going to run it, and then ultimately getting the quarterback on the ground on a critical third down play. But like anything, there's things for improvement. We already touched on the offense. We've got to take care of the ball better than we did. That thing cannot be as loose as it was. We still missed a couple opportunities in the red area where we had chances to score, which is somewhere where we definitely need to improve. I thought defensively, we got a little sloppy in our coverage and allowed them to make some explosive plays there in the fourth quarter. 3rd and 17, they get a big completion over the middle, and then obviously the long catch and run for the touchdown was just awareness of what we're trying to do coverage-wise, and when we play really great football, we minimize those explosive plays. We're very aware situationally, so areas for us to improve, no question. As we move forward, I can't thank Longhorn Nation enough. The support they showed on the road was tremendous. We could feel them in the stadium. Obviously, it was a great moment for us on the field, but to be able to share it with our fans, our band, our students, that was the parents of our kids. It was an awesome moment, so we can't thank you enough. And which goes right into, we get to be back at DKR Saturday night, 7 o'clock kick. We're looking forward to DKR being rocking. Should be an electric environment. I know the students came out early for the 2:30 kick against Rice, so I'm envisioning they'll be out early for a 7 o'clock kick, and hopefully it creates the environment that we're continuing trying to push towards, which is one of the most intimidating places to play in the country. We got a really tough opponent. That challenge you a lot of ways. Coach Bowles, a tremendous coach. He's got a really veteran football team, a lot of 4th, 5th, and 6th-year seniors on their team. As we've touched on, really well coached, hard-nosed team. They make things challenging on you because they execute really well on both sides of the ball as well as on special teams. So great challenge, 2-0 team coming in here confidently. But for us, like we talked about to the team, that one game isn't going to define our season last week. What we do moving forward, I think championship teams continue to improve as the season goes on. And we've got goals and aspirations of being champions this year. We've got to continue to improve this week, and that was the starting point here this morning.
Raise your hand if you have a question. We'll get a mic to you. Start with Dennis up front.
Coach, along those lines, can you share any cool texts or voicemails that you might have gotten? And with that, all the praise is coming for you and the team. What did you learn from Pete Carroll and Nick Saban as far as how to follow a win like that to keep your team locked in? Naturally, you have games like that, national televised games, prime time. You get all the calls and text messages. I always look forward to the ones from
family members. Obviously my son was with me, so my daughter's sending me pictures of he and I on the field after the game. My parents, and then obviously I've got a lot of people in the profession I respect, but you get a couple of those that you really respect, and so you appreciate when they comment on how we played the game. And like I tell the team all the time that that the best thing that can happen to me after a game is when I get a text from a colleague in the profession about how the way we played, how hard we played, and I think that was kind of a common theme of the messages I got. Those two guys, Coach Carroll and Coach Saban, they're championship coaches, and they've, whether it was a 7-year straight run that Pete Carroll had at USC or what Coach Saban's obviously done here at Alabama, the consistency in which their teams played. And it wasn't about the opponent. It was about the way they prepared and the way they practiced and then ultimately the way they played. And so that's the challenge for us, right? That we come right back to work today, prepare really well, practice really well so that we can perform really well Saturday night.
Over here on your left, Chip.
Steve, can you talk about your special assistants now that you're into the season a little bit? Pyam and Joe DeCamillis with the game management and how Paul Christ is helping you.
Yeah, I think all three of those guys have pretty clearly defined roles in the organization with what Pyam does defensively, and I think we can feel some of the impact there. He's a great sounding board for PK. We know his background in kind of the flex defense, and so incorporating not the flex defense, but there's aspects, right, that we can work with, and some of the line stunts up front and different things. I think, Coach Christ obviously, offensively, he's a great sounding board for us because of, I know sometimes it might look different, but really schematically what he did and what we do is very similar. And so when we're in game plan mode and we're talking about different things, there's great ideas there. And again, I think he's really good in the run game, and I think we'll continue to reap the benefits of that. Obviously, Joe DeCamillis, special teams guru, and the support he provides with Coach Banks in preparation is huge. And then obviously on game day, again, I don't know if we've really seen it all of what the clock is doing to us yet, but I think it will show up. We're just trying to be as prepared as we can be. He's a good sounding board for me. I think in this day and age, everybody has the book, right? Whatever the book is. But in the end, we take information and then we make decisions what we think is in the best interest of the program in the moment. And he's a great sounding board for me because he's been in so many situations throughout his career that I can kind of bounce things off of or confirm what I was thinking. And naturally, we've went into the season with a mindset that we want to be a little more aggressive than we've been historically. And I think that's shown up on some of our fourth down attempts now here over the first couple ball games. But again, we don't want to be irrational with those decisions. And like I said, he's a good sounding board for me on that stuff.
Stay here on the left, center.
Yeah, Steve, after a win like that, it's human nature for these guys to be poking their chest out and celebrating because they put that work in. And you're talking about preparing for the next one, moving on, but I guess as a coaching staff, it's got to be difficult to try and cut and paste that. The process is going to be even harder because they know what they can do now.
Well, I think I look at it both ways. I think one, I agree with you, that they are confident. And, I think one of the mistakes I can make is try to beat them down and then knock the confidence out of them. I've spent 2.5 years trying to instill confidence into them. And so I want to be mindful of that. But two, I have to point out areas for us to improve and where we can get better as a team. And I think, ultimately for me being transparent with them all of the time, good, bad, ugly, whatever that is, that I've earned their trust, that I would never guide them in a direction that wouldn't be in their best interest to perform at the highest level. And so even today when we went in and okay, here's the plan, here's the messaging, here's what we're trying to do this week, I felt like they accepted that message and they accepted it as a challenge, and now they need to go put forth the work to prepare to go do that. So Again, it's a little bit of a slippery slope because, again, when you're overly confident, sometimes that's when you can skip the details. Well, excellence lies in the details, and so we have to make sure that we continue to press upon that way and whatever those details are in any phase of the game.
Good morning, Coach. Wanted to see if you can give us maybe an update on C.J. Baxter, maybe his health, maybe if Mo Blackwell is going to play, and then I had another one. You want to get that one first, or
I'll do that one. Okay, so Cedric, I think, knock on wood, not quite as serious as we may have originally thought. So we're going to monitor him day to day. He was at practice today, very limited. So we'll monitor him on that front. Mo Blackwell is still in the rehab process. He was running almost full speed today. So again, he'll be a day to day as we move throughout the week.
And then from Quinn's aspect, when you look back at it from a technical point, what did he do so well technically that you was able to excel? And can you also speak to that was a hostile environment, some concert at every time out, it seemed like. Talk about him being able to be so poised.
I think those two things go hand in hand, quite frankly. I thought Quinn was very clear-minded going into the game. I thought he had a really good understanding of what we were going to do and why we were trying to do it. I think he assumed his responsibility with a lot of the pre-snap things that we were doing in the ball game, which in turn, I'm remiss for not mentioning this at the beginning. To go into that environment and to have 0 pre-snap penalties, that's a credit to our offensive football team. There was no self-inflicted wounds that way where on the flip side, we kind of saw it for the home team. So really, and a lot of that credit I think goes to Quinn. His poise, his composure, how calm he was, I think kind of went throughout the entire offensive football team, and everybody felt comfortable because he was. But I think that same feeling led to him being technically sound in the game. I thought his pocket presence was good. Like I said, I thought there was a moment there late in the second quarter, and we were a little bit backed up. There was a play or two where I felt like he got a little bit antsy in the pocket and a couple errant throws. But again, it's 2 weeks in a row now where that was the last drive of the first half. We got in the locker room. He kind of got refocused, resettled down, and then went and played a really good second half. So I think that's a lot of real growth that he has shown from last season to this season to kind of recalibrate, recenter himself, and then come out and play a really good second half after maybe not being as sharp as he could be there late in the second quarter.
Back right, Roger.
Sark, you mentioned after the game, you told the team, thank you for trusting us. Is that something as a coach that it's not a given that happens, and how have you seen that kind of evolve in your time here?
Well, we have an adage, trust equals time plus consistency. And so it takes time to earn trust, but you also have to be consistent, whether you're a person, a staff, whatever you are, so that they can feel what it looks like over and over and over. It's hard to trust somebody when, 2 days you do something one way, then the third day you totally contradict yourself. And so we've tried to be really consistent with our messaging. And we knew over time as our program grew that we could earn more trust along the way. And I really feel like, I don't know if I've got 100% of that locker room. That's they could tell you that. But what I do know is, man, it feels a lot better where they really trust why and what we're doing. And that everything is for a reason, that we really get to the whys of what we're doing. I think at the end, you can feel a team when they trust you. But part of that trust comes from when you're wrong, you have to admit to them when you're wrong too as a coach. And when you make a mistake, you have to take ownership as well. And so we try to, like I said, be really transparent with the guys on everything that we do and how we do it. And in the end, I think we've gotten to a spot now where when we decide to go run 4 gassers today and tell them why we're doing it, there's no whining or complaining. They just hands behind the line and they go and they get done what they need to get done. So I think that's a real positive.
Back here on your left, Danny.
You get a 2-day break from the deep ball questions. Sorry. When you look back at the film, what do you think worked on that pass to Xavier and that pass to Adonai?
Well, I think one of the keys was I thought Quinn, the look was there. right? It's one thing just to run guys deep, but if he's double covered and things. So I think we got the coverages that we were looking for. I think the receivers ran the routes and then ran them in to the spot to where they were supposed to be. And there was consistency in the route running as we ran them in practice so that they knew the spot on the field where that ball would be thrown. And then I think the third component was Quinn put nice air on the ball, and he allowed the receivers, both those guys, to adjust to the ball in the air. It's very difficult for a receiver to adjust to the ball when it's flat down the field. That's a tall task, especially when it's back over your shoulder. But when there's air on the ball, now they can track it and they can adjust to it. It's like playing center field, right? And the ball's hit to deep left center. The flatter the ball, the tougher it is to gauge that angle. The higher the ball, the better they can gauge it and go track it and go make that play. So I think those three things combined, we got the coverages that we were looking for, and it was the right read. 2, the consistency in the route running from practice to the game, and then 3, the air underneath the ball to allow them just to go get it.
Stay here on the left, Thomas.
Coach Anthony Hill, I think, had 2 sacks. When you look at his even near future, how do you see using him most effectively? Would it be more on the edge or still at that linebacker position?
Well, I think that's the beauty of Anthony Hill and recruiting that type of player and continuing to try to recruit that type of player is being versatile. He's got a really versatile skill set, and his ability to play off the ball linebacker, his ability to play true edge and come off the edge, and then his ability to blitz the quarterback from an off the ball position. I think all 3 of those, that's a real skill set that he has that I don't want to pin him down in just to one thing. Now, as his career grows and what that looks like, we'll see game to game. That may change some throughout his career. He's 2 games in. We'll see. But if you really look at our roster and how we've recruited that position, whether it's a Tassili Akana, whether it's a Darian Gillette, a lot of these guys are kind of falling into that same type of body type. We're trying to find versatile players like that have a skill set to play in space, but also have the ability to rush the passer.
On your right, Terry.
Coach, leading up to the game in practice, what did you notice the defense was doing that was getting them prepared? And, can you talk about the interceptions that we got in the second?
Yeah, I think 2 things. One kid I want to make reference to, Savion Red played Jalen Milroe all week, and I think that sometimes we don't give enough credit to the guys that do the scout team work. Everybody on our team's got a role to the team's success, and the job he did last week I think was really beneficial for our defense, because it's one thing when a quarterback drops back and then scrambles. It's another when it's a guy who's a receiver / running back, explodes and goes. And we weren't perfect in containing Milroe last week, but I think we were a lot better off because of the work that Savion Red did in practice. I think the other thing that the defense did was they took their prep work to the game. And both those interceptions were things that they carried over from practice to the game, and it paid off. That the coverage that Jade gets the interception on was specifically for a couple different route concepts, one of which was the interception that he makes the play on. The play by Jaron Thompson was really good, of recognition of the tight ends blocking and then getting out underneath the deep curl route to get the interception. So their awareness, but carrying their preparation to the game, I thought was one of the key components for the defense.
In the middle, Kirk.
Yeah, Steve, as great as Quinn has been, especially the last 6 quarters, what's your level of concern with the running game and getting it to championship level, if you will?
I've gone against Alabama's defense in practice for a couple years, and obviously in last year's ball game, and then this year. We knew kind of going in it was going to be hard yards. They make it hard. It's a really good defensive front. They set the edge really well. Their safeties are very physical players. They're really good tacklers, and that's historically, that's what Coach Saban recruits. So I knew the yards would get hard, but I did want to make sure that hope we could run it when I knew we had to run it, and whether it was short yardage type situations, and or in the fourth quarter when we were trying to take the air out of the ball a little bit. So I was very encouraged on a few of those kind of third down runs. I was obviously extremely encouraged with our ability to run the ball late in the fourth quarter and move them off the ball. Quite frankly, I felt like we probably could have ran the ball better if I was maybe a little more committed to it in game. But the plan was the plan. We wanted to be aggressive and we wanted to try to attack them down the field. So it's probably a few more passes and shots and things that because that was the plan. But I felt like we were moving them okay, and I felt like if we were in run mode, I think over time in that third quarter we could have started to establish ourselves better. But I think ultimately it paid dividends there in the fourth quarter when we had to run it. I'm okay. This is a big week. This team, Wyoming is a very good run defense. I don't think they've given up 100 yards total on the year yet in rush defense. So it's a great challenge for us. It's a veteran group. They play blocks really well. They play well together. They're very gap sound, and so it's going to challenge us on a lot of levels. And so this is a great challenge for us to grow as a team when you start talking about developing and improving your team and being as versatile as you need to be, because there's no telling we're going to run into a game where the elements say we can't throw it the way we would like to, and we're going to have to run it. So we got to continue to improve that, yes.
Far right, Ed.
Coach, you said last year on the road a few times you got in the lulls during the game. What was the difference Saturday night? And on your sideline, when you look over there and you got the governor, you got the president of the university, you got CDC, you got Matthew McConaughey, and you got Vince, do you ever have any times you say, what the heck have I done? How do I approach this with those superstars of Texas on the sidelines?
What was the first part? That was
the first part was the lulls. How did you get the lulls?
I don't. We just been working on that. We've been really working on the fourth quarter aspect, even in practice throughout training camp, and how vital the fourth quarter is. And I think one thing as a play caller, you feel like when you're having that lull, sometimes play it safe, just try to find rhythm. And Saturday, I kind of went the other way. Quite frankly, when we fell behind 16-13 there, played it pretty aggressively. We kind of went after them, maybe a little more aggressively than maybe I would have a year ago. And obviously it worked. It worked this past Saturday, and we were able to score, I think, in 3 plays to regain the lead. So I think the mindset of our guys, we have a veteran offensive team, and them understanding why we're calling what we're calling. I think that communication's been better this year as well, of getting out in front before drives begin so they can expect the calls that are coming, and I think that puts them at ease a little bit more. I would say from the standpoint of just the sideline and the people at the game and our fans in the stands, it's awesome. It's like, when you take over a program and hopefully you can create a culture and one that makes people proud of the way that we play and that we represent the university. And clearly being in that moment Saturday, when we got the governor, the president of the university, the athletic director, and the national championship quarterback, and McConaughey, and how our fans just showed up. Man, it's like it's spreading, right? Our culture's spreading, and who we are and what we're about and the way we go about it. It's really cool, and I don't miss those things. Like in game, I see the governor, and I see CDC and McConaughey, and I see Vince, and there's some games I may say hello, there's other I'm not, and I didn't this week because I just wanted to stay as focused as I could be. Not that I don't otherwise, but I knew this game I had to call it a very specific way and tried to stay in that mode. But I don't miss those things. Like, those are the moments. This is why we do what we do. And like I tell our players, enjoy these moments and don't miss these things as they're in front of you, because you'll look back and you'll remember that kind of stuff. And those are, as much as we live in the moment, those are great stories to tell that last a lifetime.
In the middle, Jeff.
You talked about the growth that you expected to see from week 1 to week 2 after watching the film several times, I'm sure. What are a few areas where you feel like the team grew the most? Yeah,
I did. I felt like, we found a little more rhythm pass game wise, and I thought we played faster. And, I could sit here and attribute it to the heat in week 1. I can attribute it to, it's a different opponent. But I think at the end of the day, as a competitor, our speed is an advantage of ours. And I thought we played fast football, especially offensively, Saturday night. naturally, I thought we were very disruptive up front on the defensive side of the ball, which paid dividends. I know early on we didn't play the run great, and then we settled in there. But our ability to create kind of chaos in the backfield, I thought was huge. And I'd be remiss. Ethan Burke had a tremendous game. I thought Byron Murphy had a great game. A week ago we were talking about Tavondre Sweat, and obviously we know what Anthony Hill did. So a lot of cool plays, and not to mention the effort play by David Benda on the sack that he got. So that front continues to grow in a way where they were really active. Okay, from a special teams perspective, we're still. We think we're close, like the return game's close, and we need that aspect to grow for us, whether it's the punt return or kick return game. So, we're seeing the growth, and we saw it last week, but there's new levels for us to go to, and I think that we can get there.
On your right, Joe?
Kind of about the defensive line, you talk a lot about rush lanes. For the most part, is that what it's supposed to look like on Saturday, being able to keep four and create a pocket but collapse that pocket as best they can?
That's ideal. There was probably a few too many times we let him scramble to his right, most notably in the first half. That was something that we wanted to try to get fixed in the second half. But for the most part, yes, if we could just kind of collapse the pocket. It wasn't always about just beating your man one-on-one. But when you rush that way, you got to be good in coverage too. And like I said, I thought we covered well the other night, and I thought those two things married up really well together outside of about, there's probably 3 or 4 plays where that happened, and they hurt us when we didn't do it right. They 3rd and 17 for a big conversion. Like I said, the long touchdown to the tight end where we don't take very good zone drops, and then we don't tackle very well. So there was a couple of those plays, and then the touchdown pass was a touchdown pass. It was a max shot play action pass, and it was a heck of a throw and catch. And so, but most notably on the drop back stuff, I did think our rush lanes were good. I think we got to continue to work on that because we're going to face some pretty athletic quarterbacks here down the road.
Far left.
Sark, there were some big plays in this game that came on drives where either you were coming off the goal line or they're coming off the goal line. When you talk about situational football, how much do you work on that, whether it's in camp or during the week? And then how much trust do you have to have in your offense to call the play like you did where you're backed up and Quinn throws the shot to AD because, an incomplete pass, you could get yourself behind the chains. And
what I loved about that, we practice it every week. We practice being backed up every week, and there's emphasis throughout training camp. We do it in scrimmages, good on good. We try to put ourselves in those scenarios. Last week we were backed up. We hit Xavier, I think, for about a 15-yard pass to get out of there. This week what was cool was that wasn't the original route, but it was something that we knew if we got that look, that Quinn could signal that go ball to AD. And again, taking your preparation and practice to the game, Quinn signaled it, and AD makes a heck of a play on, some people call it a 50-50 ball, but it was a really great throw and great catch right there on the sidelines to get us out of the own shadows of our own end zone. So I think, again, it's just having that confidence in them, and if they know if I'm calling it, I believe in it, and I believe in them to go execute it, and I think that's where we've gotten offensively with Quinn most importantly.
Back by the cameras, Bob.
There was a report on the broadcast that Vince said something to Quinn in that fourth quarter about finishing. How much do you think Quinn recognizes the significance of having Vince around, and then for everything you've worked on trying to finish and everything you worked on this offseason to see you finish the way you did running the ball? How significant was that moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, for me, that was the coolest moment of the game, when two really good teams play each other, it's like every NFL game we watch outside of the Cowboys last night, okay? I don't know, that was unbelievable. I couldn't believe that game. But NFL games always come down to the last possession or two. That's the way they go. There's so much parity in that league. Well, when two really good teams play in college football, generally it's going to come down to a possession or two at the end of the game. And your ability when you have the lead to possess the ball and to try to not give it back to them is critical. And that's where your run game has to come alive. And that was one of the coolest moments for me in that we were able to do that. But to me, that started 2 drives before that, where we hit AD for the long touchdown. Then our defense takes the field, and they have that 3rd and 10. I had met with that unit. We got different packages. Our NASCAR unit on Thursday, I called them out to the middle of the field, and I left everybody else on the sidelines. I said, this game's going to come down to a 3rd or 4th down, 7+, and I said, this stop is you're gonna win the game on a stop here. And so you got to start visualizing that and wrapping your brain around that, of how that's going to look and how we're going to cover and how we're going to pressure this quarterback. And inevitably, it was 3rd and 10. We had really good coverage. It wasn't just a great rush. The coverage was good. We forced the quarterback to hold the ball, and then Anthony Hill gets home for the sack, and we forced the punt. Because probably if they get 5, 6, 7 yards, they're going to go for it there. And we force the punt, then we throw the touchdown. And so all those things tying it together led to 7:14 on the clock and us running it out. So I think the messaging is huge. Like everything in coaching, you get what you emphasize. And we've been emphasizing it. And then those reminders along the way, right? We can't say it one day and not say it for another week. We got to keep preaching the message. And then the players can start to spread that message, and Quinn's one of the vocal leaders that way that can do that.
Your left coach, Leah.
Coach, I think it was early in the second quarter you had Xavier Worthy throw the ball, get that pass interference call by the defense. I'm curious what gave you the confidence to call one of those trick plays like that so early in the game in such a big environment.
Well, really in the first half we called 2 reverses and a double pass. So we like I said, we've been working on some stuff, and the players, to their credit, they've been executing those things, not just in practice for scout team stuff, but good on good. Xavier obviously threw a touchdown pass last year. We feel like we have playmakers in space when we can do reverses and double passes that they'll go make plays. And I think ultimately when they take some ownership on those things and they have a little bit of fun with them and they can make them come to life, you want to give them that. You want to give them those opportunities. And so, a guy that I study a lot is Andy Reid, and I think he's arguably the best play caller in football, if not one of. And I don't know if y'all watched that show, The Quarterback, with Pat Mahomes on there. And there was a moment in there where they're talking about some of the plays they run in the low red zone and how they come up with those plays and who names the plays. And then, Pat kind of is off on the side working on those plays. And you could just see kind of the joy and the excitement. Football is a grind. And when we go out every day, and it's like Groundhog Day. And sometimes you got to give them some things to kind of pick up the spirits. And so when you practice them and they look pretty good, I kind of owe it to them to call it. And so we called 3 of them in the first half. And I was joking with the guys today. I thought both reverses, we got about as bare minimum as we could get on those plays. I thought Xavier's reverse probably should have been a touchdown. AD and the ball comes out. But the pass probably would have been a touchdown if it's not for the pass interference. So they're instilling confidence back in me that I can trust them too.
Hey, Coach, you talked about not letting the win linger at all. How vital is player leadership in that, and has anybody stepped up? Who do you rely on as far as players in their role? Yeah,
again, I want to be real clear. I do not want our guys to not feel confident coming out of that game. They earned the right to be confident by the way they played. Now we're trying to recreate it, right? They set a new standard for what we're capable of, which we talked about. And then how do we recreate and get to that standard and then try to exceed that standard to create another new standard? And so that's where the leadership kicks in. Again, I'm not trying to knock these guys down. I'm trying to point out areas for improvement so that we can keep growing as a team. But that's where the real leaders step up. That's where Jalen Ford steps up. That's where Jaron Thompson steps up. That's where Jahdae Barron steps up. That's where Xavier and Jay Witt step up, and JT, Christian Jones, Quinn, naturally. That's where those guys step up. So that whole entire leadership council that we have, that's a bunch of really good guys that want to be champions, and so they're continuing to push each other as much as we're trying to push them as coaches.
Sark, I'll put a bow on Alabama, but I'm thinking about the end of the game. some flashes in your life on that field afterwards with your son.
Yeah.
A lady from Alabama, I'm pretty sure I know who she was, but that was a pretty emotional moment. And then Vince Young from a different part of your career, kind of a surreal 15 minutes.
Yeah, that was. It was, I mean, it's special, you know. Shoot, the last time I was on that field, I was acting head coach. Coach Saban was out with COVID. It was the Iron Bowl against Auburn. So to go all the way around, full circle, to some really great moments there and some really special people there at that university. And then I turned around and there was my son right there on the field, and our fans were there, and my wife was there, and trainers from Alabama and doctors from Alabama were there, and obviously had just had a moment with Coach Saban. So in sports, a lot of times we don't take it all in, and then you look back and you're like, man, I wish I would have. And so you just try to take a moment to take it all in. I got to go in the locker room and put a cigar in my mouth and take a picture with my son. I mean, who would ever thought that would have happened, right, 10, 15 years ago? So it was all these little things that along the way that I just didn't want to make sure that I didn't miss, and want to make sure that I got a chance to get to a lot of people at Alabama, the people that work at the stadium, to tell them thank you, because when you leave after a bowl game, a lot of times you have to come back. And so I just try to take those few moments with a lot of people, as many people as I could, to do that.